Hello and welcome to the WZCC Chamber of Commerce Australia's March podcast series on the International Women's Day 2021. Rather than just having an event on the day or just a day before or a day after, the WZCCA decided that there were too many stories for us to tell and to compass them in one session. So we've got this series of podcasts and probably a webinar coming up shortly too. So I'm Jimmy Medora. I'm the Global Director on the International Board of Directors of the WZCC and host today. It is my real pleasure to have our guest today, Dinaaz Lentin. Dinaaz is a resilience and change keynote speaker who has overcome unimaginable challenges. She's here to share some of her stories and the many life lessons she's learned along the way. Life lessons that each of us can implement to overcome our own personal challenges and to turn our hopes and dreams into success. Dinaaz has over 35 years of executive experience in government agencies, multinational public and private companies, and not-for-profit organizations. She's also the founder and CEO of 2 companies. Along with her business accolades, she's an ambassador for Diabetes New South Wales and the ACT. Dinaaz is a survivor of over 40 years of medical complications, which are the basis of her memoir, Battle Scars. Available in print, ebook, and as an audiobook now, it has received rave reviews from both the medical and non-medical readers from 5 continents. It's a pleasure, a real pleasure, to welcome you, Dinaaz.
Thank you, Jimmy.
So, when we spoke, you said that you would like to call your talk today resilience. You have to risk it for the biscuit. I must admit I struggle with that one. Could you enlighten little dumb asses like me?
Well, the way I look at it, everyone goes through challenges in their lives. You can stay where you are, or you can do something to overcome them. Mm-hmm. If you want to overcome them, you've got to take risks, and you've got to challenge yourself. You can move forward, you can move backwards, you can stay the same. If you decide to move forward, you can choose path A, path B, path C, whichever path. But there will be right paths, there'll be wrong paths, and you'll have to take risks along the way. Mm-hmm. And when you risk it for the biscuit, you get your reward. And taking risk gives you the rewards. And success breeds more success. And you get more biscuits that way. And you get a jar filled with biscuits.
Okay, that makes sense now that you explained it in that way. I must admit I struggled with it, saying resilience, risk it for the biscuit. Anyway, so thank you for that. As we've said, you've undergone a lot of complications, a lot of problems that you've had, challenges. You've faced, not only have you faced these challenges, but you've overcome them. Could you give us a sense of what that really entailed?
I have faced, let's put it another way. I've been lucky with most of my life. Mm-hmm. Wonderful family, wonderful friends, but everyone faces challenges in their lives. No one's immune from them. And the challenges that I have faced are the ones in the medical field. And when I was 19 years old, which was a long time ago, I went into hospital for my very first operation. And when I woke up from the anaesthetic, I woke up and I realised that the wrong leg had been operated on.
Whoa.
And when the surgeon came to see me the next morning on his rounds, I said, "You've operated on the wrong leg." And he said, "No, I haven't. Whilst you were under the anaesthetic, I compared your right knee to your left knee. Your right knee was fine, but your left knee gave a loud crack, so I had to open it up and have a look inside." but don't worry, there's nothing wrong with your left knee either. So, of course, there was nothing wrong with the left knee because it was the wrong leg.
Yeah.
But the biggest mistake that he made was he sent me a bill, and I said, no, I'm not going to pay you for operating on the wrong leg.
Mm-hmm.
So he sued me for not paying his bill. So I had to find a solicitor to
Fight your case.
fight against him. And the solicitor said, why are you getting sued? You should be the one suing him. So that's how I sued him, just out of defence. And it went all the way up to the Supreme Court of New South Wales.
Whoa.
And it took 3 years. And 3 years later, on the morning of the court case, the doctor finally said, I've done the wrong thing. I'd like to settle out of court. And I said, no. If I settle out of court, that means the matter is swept underneath the rug.
Absolutely.
And I can't talk about it. I would not be able to tell you about it if I had settled out of court. So I said, no, I want my day in court. And I went to court. And the funny thing is, I got thrown out of court as well. Because I was arguing with the judge, but
Very feisty.
It's a funny story. But when I was 3 years old, when I got my first report card, and usually children get, Johnny is good at colouring or Jenny is good at cutting. My report card said she's a little too self-willed. And it was that self-willed attitude that helped me fight all these battles. So that was my first challenge. The second medical challenge happened about 15 years later when my daughter Anita was born. And the labour was extremely badly managed. Partly because there was a major fire going on. The east coast of New South Wales was on fire. Sydney was surrounded by a ring of fire. And there were a lot of people going into hospital. They were understaffed, and I went to hospital at the same time during this bushfire period. And basically, I was forgotten, and the damage to my body was extensive. And I ended up having 11 operations over the 12 months, in that first year. Another challenge that I've had is I've had a drain left inside my arm, even though I told the nurse on 3 separate occasions, there were 2 drains. You've only taken out 1. And she got distracted. She went out, came back, there were 2 drains. You've only taken out 1. She got distracted, went out, came back. There were 2 drains. You've only taken out 1. And she said, well, when I was out there, I checked, your drain was in there. So I just believed what she had to say. Unfortunately, a month later, I had to go back into hospital for another emergency operation to remove the drain that had been left inside. Another thing that happened was an extremely rare complication from anaesthesia. And millions of people have operations every single day. And for some reason, my arm got paralysed. And that didn't happen once, but it happened twice on both my arms. So
Due to anesthesia?
Due to anesthesia.
Wow.
Yeah. So those are my challenges, but I've overcome them all. I've overcome.
I mean, that I think that is all covered very well by you in your book, Battle Scars, as you can see. So we can cover that. But I think of all these medical challenges, which was the most difficult for you to bear and overcome, psychologically, mentally, physically, all that kind of thing?
They all had their challenges. But the advantage that I had for my earlier ones was that I had the support of my family and friends, and I had a fantastic team of medical professionals looking after me. There were a few not so professional, but most of them were extremely good.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd say the one that was most challenging was when my arm was paralysed the second time. And I'll give you a little bit of a background as to what happened the first time. The first time that it happened 27 years ago now, I was in the hands of a fantastic hand surgeon, and his name was Dr. Isaacs.
Mm-hmm.
And for the first 6 months, he just did a number of tests, you know, nerve and muscle biopsy, he had an ultrasound, and he did neurological tests. And everything came up fine. And at the 6-month mark, he said, Dinaaz, you've got to give me a chance to also help you. I know you're going through a difficult time with all those other operations, but you've got to give me a chance to also help you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's basically all he said. And I said, okay, there's a window of opportunity right here. Let's just go ahead for it. Outside the operating theatre, I was asked by the nurse, you know how they ask you, what's your name, date of birth, your address.
To verify.
Yeah, just to verify
Yeah.
that everything, you know, tick, tick, tick. She asked me all those questions, I answered them. And then she said, what procedure are you having today? And
Wow.
I said, I don't know. And she goes, you don't know what you're having done today? And I said, I have absolutely no idea what procedure I'm having today. She said, you just wait right here, I'll be back. And I thought, where does she think I'm going to go? I'm in this hospital gown with this split down the back, you know.
Yes.
Where am I planning to go?
Yeah.
So she went off in one door, and from another side, this man dressed in scrubs came over to me.
Mm-hmm.
He had his surgical cap, his gown, and he had those surgical magnifying glasses sitting on the top of his head. And he came over to me and he said, Dinaaz, I've got to be honest with you. I have absolutely no idea what's wrong with you. I don't know what I'm looking for. I don't know what I'm going to do when I find it. And the only thing that I can guarantee you is that you're going to be left with a 10-inch scar down your arm. And, 10 centimetre scar. 10 inches is a bit longer.
Yeah, I thought, well, that's frightening.
And I said to this man, that's all right. I don't know either. You know, just stay close to Dr. Isaacs and he'll guide you and he'll show you what needs to be done. And this man pulls off the surgical glasses off his head, he pulls off his cap with his other hand and he goes, Dinaaz, it's me, it's Dr. Isaacs. And I said, oops, if you don't know what's wrong and you don't know what you're doing, I think we're in trouble. And he said to me, Dinaaz, my gut instinct says your problem is at the elbow. And I'm thinking, okay, if that's your gut instinct, then go for it.
Go for it.
2 days later, he came to see me in the hospital and he was so excited. He goes, your muscles look like chicken and there were tentacles strangling your nerve. And I thought, forget about all that. Have a look at my thumb. It's already starting to move. And he was ecstatic. 2 days, within 2 days, the paralysis had been reversed.
Wow.
So that was a really pleasant experience. 4 years ago, I was admitted into hospital for an emergency procedure for kidney stones. And the same thing happened again. But this time, my left arm was paralysed. And I recognised the pain straight away. I know what this pain is. Your body does not forget pain. Mm-hmm. And I said, I know what this is. So I brought my phone back to bed and I started Googling Dr. Isaac's contact details. But what I found instead was his obituary.
Oh.
And he had died, and all the reports, all the letters, all the notes were destroyed. I went to my surgeon and I said, I know what this pain is. this has happened to me before. And he goes, I've never heard of anything like this. And I said, no, but I know what it is. This is what needs to be done. My muscles were white and they looked like chicken and there were tentacles strangling the nerve. So he sent me to a neurologist. That was the next morning. Within 24 hours of experiencing the pain, I was with a neurologist. He did all these tests, couldn't find anything wrong. And I thought, I'll leave it in the hands of the expert. He's a neurologist, he knows what needs to be done. He's not an ordinary doctor. He had no idea. I went to the next doctor, and the next doctor, and the next doctor. By the 5th month, I had seen 20 different doctors, and I had 20 different diagnoses. And they had no idea what was wrong, and they were giving up. And I am facing a life without the use of one arm. So I went to a friend. I was ready to give up. And she said, you know, Dinaaz, I've known you for a very long time. I've never seen you give up. Your biggest strength is research. You can find the answers yourself. And this friend is very religious. And she said, I'm going to pray for divine intervention. A week later, divine intervention knocked on my door in the form of an email. It was from a totally random person, totally random. And he was an astronaut. And if anyone knows anything about me, I love space travel and astronauts. So I started doing research on this man. And, you know, I thought, let me find out more about him. And this man had an incredible story of his own. From the age of 5, he always wanted to be an astronaut. When he reached the final year at school, he went to the school counsellor and said, I want to be an astronaut. How do I become an astronaut? And the school counsellor told him, you're not smart enough, you're not athletic enough, and you're not good looking enough.
Whoa.
Forget about this dream of becoming an astronaut. You won't make it. So he thought, you know what, I'll show you. So he went to university and studied engineering. At the end of his course, when he was 22 years old, he met NASA's minimum requirements to be an astronaut and joined the space program. So he filled out the application form and sent it off to NASA. And what do you think happened, Jimmy?
My guess is as good as yours.
Tell me, did he make it or didn't make it?
I think he would have made it.
Well, you're wrong. No,
Ah.
he got a rejection letter. So he thought, well, no, that's my dream. I want to still keep pursuing it. He applied again. What do you think happened the second time? Yep, got rejected. Third time lucky. What do you think?
No.
Okay, you're right. So,
Wild guess.
yeah. So by this stage, he's an engineer. He's now studying for his PhD. He's then lecturing at the University of Michigan. He's a professor there. He's applying every single year. And every single year, NASA sends him a rejection letter. He then decides to do medicine. He's treating patients in hospital. NASA still says, no, not good enough. He's now performing experiments for NASA. Still no. At the age of 39, he rang them up and said, hey, am I getting a bit too old for this? And they said, oh, we know you. Just keep applying. So he kept on applying. And finally, after 16 years of rejections, he was accepted into NASA's space program. And at the age of 42, he finally went on his first of 3 space shuttle missions. And if you look at the International Space Center up there, he actually built it.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a story.
And I figured at that point in time, if he did not give up after 16 years of rejections, why am I giving up after 6 months? So that was my start. And that's when I started to do a lot of research onto the anatomy of the arm, the muscles, the nerves, the veins, the arteries. I learned about drugs. I learned about the neurological tests that were performed. I tried to read X-rays and ultrasounds and MRIs, and I did a lot of studying. I even chose my own surgeon who was likely to see me and treat me. And I did not choose him based on his academic qualifications. I chose him because he had a great smile. He had gentle eyes. You think this is a joke, but
No.
I'm serious.
Yeah.
His date of birth was numerologically the same as mine, and we both supported the same football team.
Makes sense.
That is how I was so desperate. I had to do something different. I didn't want to go to another professor. I wanted someone young, because Dr. Isaacs was young at that time when he operated on me. I also started thinking, out of all the operations taking place in the world every single day, there has to be another person who's experienced this before. So then I started doing research on trying to find a medical twin. And after maybe about a month of constant research, I found a date on the 3rd page of Google, because I was putting in different word combinations. And the date that I saw, and that's the only thing I saw, was the 5th of May. And the 5th of May is my birthday.
Oh.
And that is why I actually stopped to look at that paper. The title of that paper was Isolated Thumb Interphalangeal Flexor Weakness After Total Hip Arthroplasty. I did not put any of those words besides thumb and surgery. Those are the 2 words that took me to this title. And when I opened that paper and I read the abstract and I read the report, it was a case study about another patient that had suffered something similar, but she had recovered by 6 months, but I still was not recovering, and I could see continual deterioration. I then sent an email to the author, the main author, and this man was Professor Dr. Patrick Weinrauch. He was a hip surgeon. And I sent him an email, and I basically said, please help. And it was during Easter, and I thought, there's no way he's going to reply. He's most probably going to say, not a crazy hypochondriac. But within 10 minutes, or 1 hour or something, a very short period of time, he actually emailed me back. And he asked me so many questions that it took me a whole day to reply back to him. And then the emails were just going backwards and forwards between him and me. And finally, I had a medical recruit on my team, and he was so good. He guided me through for the remaining journey of mine. I saw 49 doctors over 14 months. I went from Sydney to Melbourne to Brisbane. I was communicating with doctors in America, Sweden, India, South Korea, trying to find what was actually wrong with me. In the end, I finally got an appointment. I had to wait for 5 months to see my chosen one, who had the nice smile and the gentle eyes. And he had absolutely no idea what was wrong. And then reluctantly he said, there's nothing I can do to help you. And took my breath away because he was my absolute last hope. And he said, I don't know what's wrong. It goes against my grain to operate when I don't know what the problem is, where the problem is. I don't know. And I said, Dr. Isaacs also didn't know, but he still went ahead. And he said, but Dr. Isaacs is no longer here. And I said, but there's one other option besides staying the same and, making it worse. The other option is I could get better. So he said, okay, I can see you really want this operation. We'll go on this adventure together. We went on this adventure together. You should have seen his face outside the operating theatre. He was as white as a ghost. He was so petrified. And, during the operation, the anaesthetic nurse came over to me and he asked me, would you like anything? If you need anything, just come and see me. And my eyes were closed. And I opened my eyes to see, because I couldn't be given a general anaesthetic, because this was caused by a general anaesthetic.
All right.
So they gave me a nerve block, so I didn't feel anything, but I was awake. But I couldn't see the surgeon or anything. But when the anaesthetic nurse walked away and his face left my sight, I looked up and I could see the surgical light. And in the stainless steel surgical light, I could see the reflection of my arm and I could see my operation. And I watched the whole thing. But you know what? It didn't faze me, it didn't upset me. Because for the last 14 months, I'd done so much research. I'd watched so many YouTube videos that I could see, what I was seeing was another YouTube video. But the only difference was this was my YouTube channel that I was watching. And once again, 2 days later, my arm was not paralysed anymore.
Wow.
So that's been my major challenge. And when I asked when I saw my surgeon after I had experienced full recovery, he said, Dinaaz, you're amazing. You have proved each and every doctor wrong. So this one's been my most challenging, but I did it.
I think I'm a bit lost for words because, I don't think I personally, and maybe quite a few of our listeners, viewers, I think it's just amazing. To me, it's like, where did you get this resilience from? Where did you get this willpower to carry on?
Oh, it's innate.
It's innate. But I'm just hoping that when people see this and listen to this, that they take something away from it, that whatever comes your way, like you said, there might be, keep at it. Because in the last case, if you didn't have this, it was a failure, but if you did it, it could work. So you took the risk and you did it.
And I got the biscuit.
And you got the biscuit. So
now I can make my biscuits.
Yes.
Now I can make my biscuits.
We must try some. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. So the next time you bake some, please send them over to me or I'll come and pick them up. So what are the life lessons that you would have derived from all this? Because there's so much that you have endured. There must be something that when you go to bed or when you're reading some or whatever, there must be something that tells you, oh God, I've learned this and this or this. And I think that's what I think is the message that we should get across to our viewers and to our listeners. Sorry. Yeah, I think we need to know what are the lessons you've learned from all this.
Every challenge that I have faced has taught me many lessons. The first lesson that I learned when I was operated on the wrong leg was check and double check that you're not making a mistake in the first place. I made the mistake. I actually signed the form that authorised the operation to be done on the wrong leg.
Wow.
But when the nurse came over to me to prepare the leg for surgery. I said, no, you're preparing the wrong leg for surgery. It's my right leg that's to be operated on. I showed her the x-rays and they believed me. They changed the form to read left leg to right leg. So the right leg, the correct leg, was mentioned on the form. Unfortunately, the nurse forgot to change the second form that I had signed. So that is why I think my gut instinct is that the surgeon relied on the other form. But he put me into hospital the next day when he realised how bad my leg was. And he said, you've got to go into hospital straight away. He should have been able to pick that up in the operating theatre. He should have seen the R for the right leg on the x-ray, but they overlooked that. The second thing that I've learned is if you have made a mistake, own up to it and do something to rectify it. The third lesson, just because someone is bigger and stronger than you, don't be afraid of them. Be true to yourself and fight for what you believe is right. And the fifth thing is never, ever give up. During the labour stage, where I was going from one operation to the other, and it was, I spent the whole year in hospital. I learned every day is going to be better. You just have to learn to accept one day at a time. Yes, there were many low periods in my life during that time, but you just have to keep on going forward. And Dr. Isaacs taught me a very important lesson. Follow your gut. If your gut says something, it's usually right. With the last challenge, I learnt there are 3 main things that everyone needs to be able to survive or succeed in anything. You need the right tools. I'm not a medical person. I don't know anything about medicine. I don't have the tools to be doing any research, but I had to develop and I had to grow. I had to learn the anatomy. I had to learn the muscles, I can name all the muscles in my forearm. You need the right people by your side. And I had the astronaut and I had Dr. Weinrau, who was guiding me. You've got to have the right people by your side. The third thing that you need is the right mindset. Without the right mindset, you will give up, and you don't want to give up. The fourth thing, divine intervention. You can't explain it, but you've got to have faith in it. And you need a little bit of luck. That's the fifth thing. You need a little bit of luck, but luck comes only when you put in the effort. Like I was so lucky to find that paper because it was written, or not written, but it was published on my birthday. What are the chances? That was so lucky. But the other thing, those 5 things I feel are the foundation. It's the foundation of your house. You need to have those things in order, and those things are important. But I do everything with my hand because my hands are so important. And if I can leave anyone who's listening or watching this video with 5 things that they will easily remember. Your hands. When you are faced with a challenge, look at your hands and say H-A-N-D-S. H stands for your hopes, your dreams. You've got to have them. You have to have a goal as to where you want to go. A is for action. Only you can take action. No one else could do it for me. I am the one who had to take action. N is for now. Don't procrastinate. Don't say, I'll start tomorrow. I'll start next week. I'll start next year. Or after the New Year's resolution. That will be my New Year's resolution. No. If you truly want something, do something every single day, but start now. And that was what the astronaut taught me. And that's what he was doing every single day. He was going closer and closer to his goal. D is for determination. And S, you can guess, is your success.
So what's... I mean, I have to catch my breath here because there's so much to learn for us, for me at least. You've written the book. What next? What comes next for Dinaaz Lentin?
Well, my biggest challenge during COVID, where I couldn't go out and speak to too many people, was to do an audiobook.
Oh.
And I did. I recorded my audiobook. And it took me a year to do it, but I did it. And I did all the editing. And only last week is it available on Audible. So it's been a major milestone.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
I am a patient safety advocate. I have started the Patient Safety for All Foundation in Australia, and I'm looking at ways to improve patient safety for everyone in Australia and throughout the world. And I'm a keynote speaker. I speak to corporations about resilience and change, and universities, medical students, hospitals, doctors, and I'm getting my biggest fan base is the medical profession now. So they just think it's, and I get emails and phone calls from all corners of the world, from people who, doctors who have read my book, and they say, this is a great book. This book should be read by all doctors and medical students.
That's an endorsement that I think, many people might review the book and write some, beautiful this, that, life-changing, etc. But when the medical profession, who has screwed up, if that's the right word, who has made a mess of things for you, if they say that, look, this is something that people should know about, I think that's the best endorsement that you can receive. I'd like to actually take a few minutes to read some of the reviews of the book, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
So it says, there's one here from Dr. Patrick Weinrauch, the person who did this thing, says, to a physician, Dinaaz beautifully illustrates the human impact of our profession upon those whom we serve. Reflecting on Dinaaz's experience provides a strong reminder about what it is like to be a patient on the receiving side of complications, disappointment, and uncertainty. Despite significant adversity, her perseverance, resilience, and compassion represent an inspirational story of personal character and strength. That's Dr. Patrick Weinrauch. There's another professor I'd like to quote. Once in a while, I see your case in other patients with another pathology. Not the thumb, but something nobody finds the cure. Your memoir is very valuable to inspire people to not lose hope, and also for physicians to keep updating and deepening their study in medicine and their respective specialities. Professor Fernandez Valencia, Department of Orthopedic Surgery. And there are quite a few others who, mainly from journalists and from other people. There's another doctor that I would like to quote. Dinaaz demonstrated great resilience, and that term, that word resilience keeps coming up, and I think that is why when you said that I'd like to talk on resilience, I think it makes a lot of sense. So Dinaaz demonstrated great resilience in pushing for the diagnosis. It was excruciating to read the barriers she had to overcome on her long journey. Frequently, she was told there was nothing to be done to help her, and that she would have to learn to live with her disability. This must have been devastating and exasperating. She persisted, and it honestly felt like she was persisting against all odds. And this is in caps and in bold. What a tragedy it would have been if she had given up. Wow. I'm very glad I read this book, Dr. Andrew Cook. So it goes on and on. There's so many of these reviews, and a lot of them just absolutely, when you read the book, I think you will find that there are just people whose lives have been touched by you. In conclusion, do you have a favorite quote or something that you would like to leave us with?
I have lots of quotes. In my book, each chapter starts with a quote.
Right.
But I think my favourite quote is, at the end of the day, all you need is hope and strength. Hope that it will get better, and strength to hold on until it does.
I think this is a brilliant way to end this episode. I think we can go on and on and on listening to you. To wrap this up, I would have sort of started off with how great this was and everything, and I would have meant every word of it. But I'm just totally at a loss as to how to express what I've learned today from you. I've known you on and off for a couple of years, Dinaaz, and really just sort of, socially here and there. And till I came across your book in May last year when WZCC Australia bought 5 and gave it out to the first 5 women for Mother's Day. When I saw that, and I gave one to my wife actually, because she has similar problems with medical history in Australia at least. She's had great problems, not as bad as yours, but still problems. And when I see this, when I see the way the medical profession has reacted to it, and now that you got a larger audience because of the audio part of it, I think I'm just gobsmacked by how you can still keep smiling. I think men like me, I think maybe I'm wrong, but someone like me, I would have sort of said, why me? So this book could have been a sob story, but it isn't.
No.
It isn't.
No.
It is such a sort of inspiring kind of work. You could have easily gone into melodrama and said, I'm suffering and the medical profession is wrong and this and that or whatever. But I think you've done a fantastic job with that. Now I've got to reread it. Not just skim through it for this interview, but I think I will read it. And once I've read it, I think I'll earn the biscuits that you will make for me, because I'm going to risk it for that biscuit. Thank you very, very much, Dinaaz. It's such a pleasure to hear from you. It was really, really so enlightening, and it touches people. It has touched me. And men are not supposed to show emotion, and they sort of say, hard-hearted. But I think what you've said and the way you said it, and I love the smile. If you don't mind my saying so, the smile. You're saying everything with a smile, and you're actually telling us all about complications that you don't. So I just don't know. Thank you very much. I don't want to sort of go on and maybe cry on my laptop, but thank you so much. And if there is anything that we, the WZCC Australia, can do, apart from like selling your book, buying your book and doing it last year, if there's anything we can do to promote it further, and I'm not trying to get you to become a member, so I'd love if you would, but I'd love it if you would. But I think if there's anything that we can do, please just pick up the phone. You know me, you know where I live, and also my phone number. So please call me. And the WZCC, we would love to help you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.